The old man's voice cracked as he patted his empty pockets. I had a 10. I swear I did. Maya felt her stomach twist. She had exactly $3 left in her bank account, but the fear in his eyes hit her harder than her own problems. Behind him, the businessman in the tailored suit snapped. Unbelievable. Move him out of the line. I don't have time for this. His platinum card tapped the counter like a warning shot. Conversations died. Everyone waited to see if Maya would follow the unspoken rule. Protect the rich, ignore the desperate. Her hands shook, but her voice didn't. It's paid for, she said, swiping her card, knowing it might cost her the roof over her head. The old man looked up, and for the briefest second, his gaze turned sharp, almost regal. You don't know what you've just set in motion, he whispered. Maya didn't know it yet, but that one small act would drag her into a world of power, secrets, and a billionaire who wasn't done testing her. Want the full story? Hit like and subscribe to Canada's Heartfelt Tales. New chapters every week. Maya didn't have time to think about what the old man meant. The line behind her flared back to life, the suit in the navy blazer muttering curses as he grabbed his drink and stormed out. But the old man stayed exactly where he was, cupping the warm paper cup as if it were the only solid thing left holding him upright. Maya tried to return to work, but his gaze followed her. Steady, unreadable, almost too aware. She dismissed it as gratitude, though something deeper tugged at her stomach. Her shift ended early when Rick, the manager, called her into the back room. His voice bounced off the steel shelves, sharp and irritated. You can't keep doing this charity nonsense, he snapped, not even pretending to care about her explanation. You embarrassed a paying customer. You cost us revenue. You think this place runs on kindness. Clock out. She begged, not loudly, but with the urgency of someone out of options. Rick, I need the hours. I'm already behind on rent. I'm doing everything I can just to. He cut her off with a gesture as dismissive as a hand swatting a fly. You should have thought about that before you played hero. Out. The humiliation burned her throat. She walked out into the freezing air, blinking hard against the sting in her eyes. She didn't see the black luxury sedan parked across the street. She didn't see the old man watching her from behind the tinted window, his ragged coat folded neatly beside him. She didn't hear him murmur, "She's the one. Follow her." For the next 3 days, Maya tried to stay afloat, working late deliveries on her bike, pausing every few minutes to warm her hands under restaurant vents because her gloves had holes. She slept in short bursts, the fear of eviction pressing down on her like another layer of cold. She tried to convince herself the man she helped had simply been grateful. She tried not to think about his strange words. You don't know what you've done. On the 4th morning, the cafe was packed again, and Maya was back behind the counter. She needed the job too desperately to refuse the extra shift. The familiar rush of noise filled the room until it was suddenly broken by a voice she dreaded. "Hey, sweetheart," Sebastian Price called out, loud enough for everyone to hear. 4 lattes. We're celebrating. She turned to see him lounging at a table with 3 other men in identical expensive suits, their laughter cutting through the morning like dull blades. She didn't respond to his taunts, but her silence only amused him more. Then the door opened, and the old man walked in. Not slowly, not timidly. He walked with purpose, though the disguise made him appear fragile. His coat hung loose, his shoes were worn, and yet there was something deliberate about the way he crossed the room. Rick spotted him instantly. "No. Out," Rick barked, pointing at the door as if commanding a stray dog. "We're not doing this again." "I have money," the old man said softly, holding out a bill with trembling fingers. "I would just like a coffee." "I don't care if you've got diamonds in your pocket," Rick snapped. "You don't belong here. You're disturbing customers." Sebastian let out a laugh. "Guy probably crawled out of a sewer. Just get rid of him." Rick shoved the old man's arm. It wasn't a hard push, but it was enough. His cane slipped and he fell sideways, hitting the doorframe with a sickening thud. Maya vaulted over the counter before she even realized her feet had moved. "Don't touch him," she shouted, dropping to her knees beside the old man. "Sir, are you hurt? Did you hit your head?" The shop went silent. Even Sebastian's smirk faltered. Rick's face burned red. "You're fired. That's it. Get out. Both of you." Something in Maya snapped, not from fear but from clarity. She stood up, supporting the old man with her arm. "You don't have to fire me," she said. "I quit. I won't serve one more cup in a place that treats people like trash." She took the old man's hand and guided him outside into the cold. Only when they reached the empty sidewalk did he straighten his spine, the frailty falling away like a discarded mask. When he removed his beanie, smoothing back silver hair with steady fingers, Maya stumbled backward. His voice, suddenly firm and commanding, filled the air. "My name is Henry Vance." Her breath froze. She knew the name. Everyone did. Vance Logistics. Vance Industries. A man whose shadow reached across the city. He continued calmly. "You didn't just help a stranger. You stepped into a test. And passed." His car pulled up beside them. The chauffeur opened the door with a respectful bow. "Mr. Vance." Henry turned to her. "Maya, you saved more than my dignity. You may have saved my company. And now, I'd like to save your life. Get in." She hesitated only a moment, long enough to ask herself whether this was real, before stepping into a world she never imagined. The mansion was overwhelming. Marble floors, sweeping staircases, warm lights glowing through halls wide enough to hold her entire apartment. But Henry didn't dwell on opulence. He led her straight to his office, where stacks of documents and glowing screens filled every corner. He confessed everything. The cancer, the traders on his board, the months spent walking the city in disguise searching for someone with integrity. Not brilliance, not pedigree, integrity. "You looked at me," he said quietly. "Not through me. That's rarer than you know." Maya listened, stunned, as he offered her a position. Not a symbolic one, but the role of personal attaché, shadowing him, learning his company, understanding its people, preparing for something he didn't name but she felt deep in her chest. The training was brutal. Dawn to midnight. No shortcuts, no exceptions. Henry's mind was sharp, demanding, relentless. But as the weeks passed, she grew into her new world, shedding fear the way trees shed winter. She learned how to read a room full of sharks. She learned to recognize when someone smiled with knives behind their teeth. She learned how power worked and, more importantly, how it hid. The men in the boardroom didn't know what to do with her. Some were polite out of caution, others cold out of resentment. Arthur Vance, Henry's nephew, was the coldest of all, watching her with calculating eyes, convinced she was an intrusion into a legacy he believed belonged to him. Everything came to a head the day Oak Haven Capital arrived for negotiations. Sebastian Price walked into the boardroom with swagger and a rehearsed grin, until he saw Maya seated beside Henry. The color drained from his face so fast it was almost satisfying. She didn't smile. She didn't need to. He remembered every word he'd thrown at her in the cafe, and now she sat across from him in a tailored suit with a folder labeled lead consultant. The meeting collapsed quickly. Maya rejected the merger in clear, piercing language, laying out every risk his firm had glossed over. Henry backed her without hesitation. Sebastian left the room shaking, his career crumbling around him. But Arthur saw Maya's newfound authority as a threat. And villains who feel threatened become desperate. When Henry collapsed weeks later and slipped into a coma, Arthur moved swiftly. By the next morning, he had seized control of the company, cornered the board, and stripped Maya of her position. His smile as he dismissed her was poisonous. "You were a novelty," he said. "A pet he picked up off the street. Go back to making coffee." The old humiliation returned, sharper because she now understood the stakes. But before she could leave the building, her phone vibrated with a message from an encrypted app Henry had installed. Protocol Omega initiated. A video from Henry appeared, recorded in advance. his voice steady despite the weight of what he revealed. Arthur's crimes. The betrayal. The offshore accounts. The sabotage. Maya didn't breathe until the screen faded to black. And when Arthur walked into her office minutes later offering a $5 million bribe in exchange for her silence, she finally understood the magnitude of Henry's trust. She ripped the check in half. Then again. Arthur lunged toward her, but she hit send. The files flew across the world, to federal agencies, to journalists, to the board itself. Outside her office, a storm erupted. Phones rang. Greens flashed. Executives rose from their desks, panic spreading like fire through dry brush. Arthur's face drained of all color. "You ruined me," he whispered. "No," Maya said. "You ruined yourself." Security escorted him out within the hour. Federal agents arrived shortly after. But the true reckoning was still to come. Henry died 3 days later. His funeral drew the city's elite, but Maya stood apart. She wasn't there for power. She wasn't there for optics. She was there for the man who had believed in her when she had nothing. 2 days later, at the reading of the will, the final twist shattered the room like glass. Henry appeared on screen, alive only in pixels now, explaining everything. The test, the search, the disappointment in his bloodline, the hope he found in a barista with tired eyes and a stubborn heart. He left Sebastian price $3.50. Exactly the price of the coffee he mocked. He left Arthur nothing but the consequences of his greed. And to Maya, he left the entire empire. Gasps filled the boardroom. Some men shouted. Others simply stared. Maya didn't gloat. She didn't tremble. She sat in Henry's chair, the chair she had earned long before this moment, and said only, "Let's begin." But the true justice, the one that made viewers feel the story settle deeply into their bones, came later that same night when the news broke. Arthur Vance had been denied bail. Sebastian Price had been blacklisted from the finance sector. Rick, the cafe manager, had been fired after multiple customers came forward with complaints, triggered by Maya's story going public. The city whispered one truth. Cruelty carries a price. Kindness carries interest. And Maya Cole, once dismissed as nothing, had rewritten the ending of every chapter they tried to trap her in. Her story was only beginning. And the villain, he finally paid in full. In the weeks after the will was read, Maya moved through the halls of Vance Industries with a steadiness she hadn't earned from titles, but from everything she'd survived to reach that chair. She no longer walked like someone bracing for the next blow. She walked like someone who finally understood the weight of her own choices. She reviewed departments Henry once guarded closely, listening to stories from workers who had never been asked for their opinions. Their trust came slowly, then all at once, and Maya realized leadership wasn't about being feared. It was about being worth following. Still, she carried the quiet memory of the man in the ragged coat, the one who saw something in her long before she saw it in herself. On a late evening, standing by the window overlooking the city lights, she lifted the pen Henry had given her and smiled. The world below felt just as harsh as the day she bought a stranger a cup of coffee, but now she knew she could shape a piece of it. Some stories begin with luck. Hers began with courage. And every step since had proven one truth. When kindness is the foundation, no storm can tear down what you build. If this journey moved you, please like, share, and subscribe to Canada's Heartfelt Tales so more people can discover stories that remind us of the strength we carry inside.